Hello and welcome to the Futures Lab. So this week we're going to be making the Green Soul. Now the Green Soul is something that happens during the Undyne fight, and as you can see it means that the heart can't move, but it can turn this shield in different directions to block these incoming projectiles. So probably the first thing that we can do is change our box so that it's nice and small, giving the impression that the heart is trapped inside. So in your project, go across to the box sprite, let's go to the costumes tab, and let's copy the menu costume. Let's call this costume Green Soul. Now use this tool to select this box here, and now that we've selected the box, we can see it's got an outline that's white and about 7 pixels wide, so I'm just going to delete this, and then I'm going to draw myself a new box with these same settings. Now hold down Shift on your keyboard to make sure that your box is a square and not a rectangle. And then once you're done, move it into the center of your drawing area. My box is about 70 by 70 pixels. I think that's a good size. And as you can see, if it's in the center, it should be just below your character. But feel free to move it around until you're happy with where it is. So now we need to code this box to appear when we are in the Green Soul mode. So go to code and have a look for if mode equals evade. Right click on this if mode equals evade, duplicate that, but get rid of this bottom one here and get rid of the mode variable. We're going to go to variables and get out our soul variable. So if the soul equals green, we're going to switch the costume to Green Soul. And we only want this to happen inside if mode equals evade. So we're going to drag this right here. Very important that it goes underneath switch costume to evade, because first it's going to switch to this one, and then after it's going to see if we're in the Green Soul mode, and if we are, then it's going to switch to this one. Now let's head across to our heart sprite and let's create a new costume. Now I'm going to copy my red costume. I'm going to call this costume green, and nice and simple, all we need to do is select this and change the color. Now I like a slightly darker green for my Green Soul, so this is the shade of green that I've gone with. It's color 31, brightness 76. Now we need to code in our Green Soul movement, so go back to your code and look around until you find define red soul movement. That's a good place to start. Let's copy this if soul equals red. Let's move this somewhere where we've got a bit of space. Let's go to my blocks and create a new block called Green Soul Movement. Then press OK. Now drag define Green Soul Movement here, and don't forget to drag a Green Soul Movement and put it right on the bottom of our define evade. Now let's have a look at our code here. I'm just going to zoom in. Now we don't need any of this movement code, so we can get rid of that because the Green Soul can't move. It can only turn the shield. We want to check if the soul is green, and if it is, we want to switch the costume to green. Now we also need to make sure that the Green Soul moves to the very center of this box. So go to motion and get out a go to x equals 0 and y equals 0. Now let's add some code that can point the Green Soul in different directions. So get out an if then, and get out this point in direction and put it inside the if then. If we press the right arrow key, we need to make sure that we are pointing in the right direction. Then let's copy this if key right arrow pressed, and let's change that to the left arrow pointing in the left direction. Now let's add up and down as well, and I'll copy both of these. If key up arrow pressed, we want to point up, and if key down arrow pressed, we want to point down. Okay, let's give that a test and make sure it's working. So let's go to our attack sprite, look around until you find your if mode equals evade loop. Once you've found it, just pull out all of your attack code for now and put inside a set soul variable to green. Okay, let's see how that looks, shall we? Okay, moment of truth. Once the evade starts, excellent. We're inside this box and we can't move, but we can change the direction that the heart is pointing. There's a problem though. If you have a look at how it looks like in the Undertale game, the heart never changes its direction, only the shield does. So let's fix that, shall we? Back in your heart sprite, in your define green soul movement code, let's go to motion and let's get out set rotation style, put it right here, and we're going to change the rotation style to don't rotate. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it so that the heart doesn't look like it's rotating, even if it is rotating. If your game is still running, then press the arrow keys and you'll notice that the direction right here is changing each time you do that. However, the heart doesn't look like it's changing in any direction. This is good. We're going to use these directions to inform our green shield sprite. But before we create our green shield sprite, we need to make sure that now that we're changing the rotation style here of our heart, we need to make sure that when we're not in the green soul, we're changing the rotation style back to all around. So look for define evade and get out set rotation style and put it right here and change it to all around. Make sure that this set rotation style is before the green soul movement. As long as this is at the top, it'll make sure that the rotation style is set to all around for the red soul, blue soul, and yellow soul. And when it comes to the green soul, its code will switch the rotation style back to don't rotate. Okay, it's time to create our new sprite. So click on the paint here, and we'll call this sprite Green Shield. Now, let's remind ourselves what this looks like. There's this very thin green circle, and there's these two blue lines that represent the shield that moves around. And you'll notice that the shield turns red every time it successfully blocks one of those incoming spear projectiles. So to draw this, we're going to create a circle. Now, if you press Shift when you create your circle, it will make sure that it's not an oval, it will make sure that it's a circle. And you'll notice that we've got a fill but no outline, and we need to reverse that. So once you've made your circle, just click this tool here, and then use this tool here to make sure that you grab the same green that's in the center of your circle. Now, an outline of 1 should be enough, but we need to make sure that this fill is actually blank. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's make sure that we take this circle and center it. And we'll also need to change the coordinates here to 0 for the X and 0 for the Y. Now my circle's a little bit too big, so I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty close. I'm pretty happy with how that sits inside the box. Now we need to draw the actual shield itself, those two blue lines. So select the line tool. Let's make this a bit thicker and let's change to a nice blue. Let's zoom in. And if you hold down Shift before you start drawing your line, it will actually make sure that it stays nice and straight. I'm going to make this line about as tall as the circle. And then once it's drawn, I'm going to select it and move it into the center to make sure that it's nicely centered. And once it's nicely centered, I'm going to press the right arrow key on my keyboard to move it towards the right. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. Now we need to create the other line, so I'm just going to draw it from about here, and you can even connect it up if you want. Feel free to use this tool if you want to change where this line ends or begins. And if you've connected your two lines up like I have, you might notice that we've now got this sharp edge. As you can see, this one's poking a little bit outside the box. I want to fix that, so I'm going to make my line a bit thinner and then move it down a little bit. Once you're happy with your costume, let's rename this costume as blue. And remember that blue line changes into red every time it hits one of the projectiles. So we need to duplicate this costume, rename this costume as red, and then select this blue line and change it to red. Now you might have noticed that both of the lines have changed to red. I quite like the effect, but if you don't, feel free to draw a new line to make sure that the other line remains blue. Okay, once we've finished drawing our costumes, let's head to the code. Now first things first, we need to make sure that we've got the right costume. So head to Events, get out when green flag clicked, and then let's switch the costume to blue. Then we need to make sure that our green shield is in the right place. So get out a go to x0, y0. Now let's go to control and get out a forever, if, then, else. We need to make sure that this green shield shows itself and hides itself at the correct time. So get out a show and put it here, and a hide and put it here. First of all, the green shield should show itself only if the mode equals evade. But also we need to make sure that the sol variable equals green. So let's get out an and put it into our if then, and put mode equals evade in one side and sol equals green in the other. Then let's just make the green shield point in the same direction as the heart is pointing. Let's get out a point in direction 90, put it underneath the show, then go to sensing and get out backdrop of stage, change stage to heart, and change X position to direction. Put direction of heart into our point in direction, and let's give it a test. Okay, let's see if the green shield appears and the box changes. And it does, excellent. Now, if I use the arrow keys, that's pretty good. I can point this in any of the 4 directions. The heart is not turning, but the shield is, and it looks pretty good no matter which direction it's facing. Excellent. Now at this point, it's more or less working, but there is one little thing we can do to make this look a little bit better. Have a look at how this shield is turning. It's not instantaneous. It actually performs the turn. It's a very fast turn, but it is definitely turning. And that creates a very, very slight delay, which means that you need to be extra fast to block those projectiles and ups the challenge a little bit. Whereas this is just kind of instantaneous. So let's see if we can code in that cool kind of turning animation, both to make it look better and feel better, and also to make the difficulty more interesting. So first off, let's get this point in direction of heart, and move it out. We need to keep this direction of heart, but we don't need this point in direction. Instead, we're going to get out a repeat until and put it right underneath our show. Now we want to repeat this until the direction of our green shield is the same as the direction of the heart. So let's get out an equals operator and get out a direction variable from our motion blocks. And then what we're going to do is get out this turn 15 degrees here. Now how much are we going to turn? Well, we're going to take our direction of heart, and we're going to minus our direction. And let's see what that does. So we'll put our minus in here, direction of heart first, minus the direction of our green shield. Let's give it a test. Okay, so it's working, but it's still instantaneous. There's no actual turning. But this is a good start. We can slow down the turning process by dividing the amount that we are turning by. So now let's get out a divide operator and then get this whole minus and put it into the first socket of our divide operator. Now, if we divide this by 1, it will be instantaneous. And if we divide by slightly more than 1, it will be very fast. Let's start off by dividing by 2 and seeing what that looks like. Okay, so that's quite a slow move. You'll notice that's way slower than it looks here. So I think I'm going to try 1.2 and see what that looks like. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. If you want it to be faster, try 1.1 maybe. If you want it to be slower, maybe try 1.5 or whatever number you want. Now everything looks good. However, there is a bug, a secret hidden bug that's almost impossible to spot, but it's going to cause big problems for us later if we don't fix it now. Let me demonstrate to you how this bug is working. Now, we're running a repeat until, and this repeat until will keep running until direction equals direction of heart. So these two numbers have to be the same. exactly the same. And if they are not exactly the same, it will just keep running this turn forever, over and over and over again, and it will never run anything else outside of the repeat until, which means that it won't run the show and hide code, which means that the green shield will never go away and disappear once the evade mode is over. A bunch of problems are caused if you have a repeat until that you can never escape. Now, there's an easy way for us to figure out if our code is trapped inside a repeat until. Let's get out a say hello and put it here, and let's get out a say I'm trapped and put it here. Now, what should happen is that I'm trapped should only come up if we are continually trapped inside this repeat until. Otherwise, once the direction and direction of heart are the same, it should revert back to saying hello. Let's change this hello to I'm free. All right, let's see what happens in our code. Now, having a look at this, the I'm trapped is switching to I'm free okay. It's a bit slower than I would like though. I would like it to be a lot faster than this. But watch what happens when we point in the direction of up. It never escapes. All right, let's see why this is happening. Over where it says I'm trapped, let's get it to say instead the direction. And we'll have a look at what number it starts saying. Okay. You can see it switches to the number okay from here. But then watch what happens here. Uh-oh, we have ourselves a problem. Now, the reason this is happening is we're actually dealing with very, very, very small numbers and very small adjustments. And if you give it enough time, eventually, after a lot of freaking out over these very, very small numbers, it will actually get free from the repeat until loop. But this is going to cause a lot of problems in our code unless we can speed up this process and get out of that repeat until loop a lot faster. Thankfully, we have a nice, easy way to fix this problem. If you go to operators, look for something called round. This takes small decimal numbers, little fractions of numbers, and rounds them up to larger whole numbers. Let's put round over our direction here, and let's put another round over our direction of heart here. And then let's get this direction and replace it with round direction. And then get this direction of heart and replace it with round direction of heart. Now let's test it and see if it's any better. Okay, now can you see how much faster that is? Switching to the I'm free. And it's so important that we get to these whole numbers nice and quickly, not mucking around with tiny decimals and slight differences in the numbers, because in our next lesson, we're going to need those whole numbers to compare to the directions of the incoming projectiles to figure out if they've been deflected or not. But for now, that's all the time we have for this week. Subscribe and ring the bell to see the next episode. Let me know in the comments what you would like me to do next, or if you need any help with your project. And aside from that, stay awesome, be cool to each other, and take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time, ninjas.